Hello, I'm Allison Reed, 28, head baker, founder. At least that's what I believed. Grand opening morning smelled like butter, sugar, and finally, I iced the last cake while the line curled down the block. An inspector slid forms across the counter. Sign here, owner. I reached for the pen and froze. The license listed two names only, my mother's and my sister's. Not mine, not anywhere. Flour slipped from my fingers like snow in a hot room. 5 years of 4 a.m. ovens, and I didn't exist on paper. I built this place. They signed me out of it. And that was the mildest betrayal of the day. Before the ribbon and the cameras, there were years of flour. 4 a.m. alarms, mixing bowls, burned wrists hidden under sleeves. Mom, Evelyn, called herself the investor. My sister, Brooke, called herself operations. They called me the hands. When rent was due, I baked extra trays overnight. When vendors balked, I charmed them with samples. I knew customers' names, their allergies, their anniversaries by heart. Mom only adjusted my apron, reminding me, smile. People buy smiles. Brooke guarded the laptop. Invoices, permits, boring stuff, she'd chirp, shutting the lid. Just bake, that's your magic. Once I burned my forearm on a pan. Skin blistered. Mom waved it off. Cover it with makeup. Customers don't like messy. Another night, the oven died mid-batch. Brooke posted a cute story. Soft opening, we're learning. I biked across town for parts in the rain. Her caption? Proud of our hustle, her face centered. We promised equal sweat, equal share. Later, Mom brought papers I didn't understand. Formality, she said. Lawyers like neat lines. I signed where sticky notes told me to. When I asked about percentages, Brooke smirked. Don't be petty, we're family. When I asked about title, Mom soothed. Founder sounds ungracious. Let the work speak. Customers pointed at the case, whispering, Allison's batch, right? Mom turned my name tag to the wall. Brooke posted my recipe with her watermark. Team effort, she wrote. The more I built, the smaller they made me. If I pushed back, I was ungrateful. If I rested, I was lazy. So I stopped asking and just baked. I told myself families stumble, then learn. That once we opened, we'd be equals in daylight. Belief was cheaper than lawyers. And I wanted it to be true. The night before opening, I slept on a flour sack. Brooke posted, we did it, in a dress I couldn't afford. Mom rehearsed her speech in the mirror. I thought exhaustion was the price of arrival. It wasn't exhaustion. It was erasure, lined up like pastry on a tray. And at sunrise, I'd watch them slide the tray out with my name on it. Opening day should have felt like triumph. The smell of butter and sugar hung heavy, cameras flashing as Brooke cut the ribbon. Mom held the microphone, thanking our vision, our hard work. I stood behind the counter, plating samples with trembling hands. My name never spoken once. Customers cheered for the cupcakes. Reporters scribbled notes about a family-owned success. When one woman asked, which one of you is the head baker? Brooke answered smoothly, we all pitch in. My throat tightened. My fingerprints were on every pastry. Yet my name was erased in public as easily as on paper. That night, while they toasted champagne, I scrubbed buttercream off mixing bowls. Brooke's laugh carried from the office. She was already uploading another post, all gloss and hashtags. Mom rehearsed interviews with the mirror, rings catching light. I wrapped the bandage on my wrist tighter, whispering, not forever. In secret, I turned my phone camera on my own work. Shaky videos of croissants flaking under my knife. Candid clips of icing dripping slow on cinnamon rolls. I posted them under an anonymous handle, @flourlessfaith. Within weeks, strangers notice. Whoever bakes these deserves their own shop, one wrote. Real artistry, another said. At the bakery, I was invisible. Online, I was suddenly seen. Brooke mocked when she caught me filming once. Cute, playing influencer, stick to baking. But her sneer only fueled me. Every night after closing, I documented everything. The precision, the burn scars, the triumph of a perfect rise. The followers multiplied. A food blogger shared my clip. Then a small magazine DM'd, asking for an interview. I froze, afraid Brooke would find out. Afraid Mom would twist it into betrayal. But I said yes. The article came out with no mention of my family's bakery. Only my hands, my story, my recipes. Comments poured in. Where can we order from you directly? When will you open your own shop? For the first time, I imagined a future beyond their shadow. Not chained to forged contracts or stolen credit, but standing in a kitchen where my name belonged. I still showed up each morning, apron tied, smile practiced. Mom barked about margins, Brooke bragged about networking. But inside, something had shifted. The bakery wasn't the dream anymore. It was training, proof. They thought I was trapped, but I was collecting receipts. Every post, every photo, every DM was a brick in the exit I was building. They couldn't see it yet. But when the moment came, I'd walk through a door only I had the key to. What I didn't know was that they were already planning to slam it shut first. The collapse came on a Tuesday, 3 months after opening. I arrived early, arms full of flour sacks, only to find the locks changed. A bright orange notice was taped to the glass. Business under new ownership. Brooke stood inside with her laptop. Mom sat at a corner table, sipping coffee like a queen on her throne. "Allison," Brooke said smoothly, "you don't work here anymore." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" She slid a folder across the counter. Inside, transfer forms stamped, signed, with my name in perfect ink, except I hadn't signed them. "I never—" Mom cut me off, voice cold. "Don't embarrass yourself. You signed months ago. Witnessed." Her own signature glared from the page. The witness. My own mother. The room tilted. I remembered the stack of papers she'd called formality. The sticky notes marking where to sign. I had scribbled, trusting her, trusting Brooke. But those weren't partnership papers. They were an exit strategy, mine. "You forged this," I whispered. Brooke smirked. "Don't be dramatic, it's called business." I stumbled back, flour sacks slipping to the floor, white dust clouding the air. "You're stealing everything I built." "No," Mom corrected, folding her hands. "We're protecting it. You've always been reckless, emotional. This bakery needs stability, needs us." My chest burned. All those nights bent over dough, all the blisters, the tears, the joy, scraped off the board like crumbs. They hadn't just stolen a shop. They had stolen the dream that kept me breathing. I grabbed my phone, snapping photos of the papers. Brooke lunged. Mom hissed. But I shoved the folder back at them. "If you think I'm walking away quietly, you don't know me." Her smile was icy. "Who will believe you? Family disputes don't play well in court. And everyone in this town knows who made this bakery happen. Us." That night, I sat in my car in the empty lot, headlights carving into the dark. I scrolled through my anonymous account. Tens of thousands of followers. Screenshots of every post, every caption, every tag. Proof of whose hands shaped those pastries. My phone buzzed with a new DM. A lawyer I'd never met. "Saw your story in the magazine. If you ever need help with ownership or branding rights, call me." I stared at the message, tears blurring the screen. They thought they'd buried me under forged signatures and family lies. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I had already built another name. Not on their papers, on my own. And I was about to use it to burn their empire down. The next morning, I walked into a law office with trembling hands, and flour still crusted under my nails. The lawyer from the DM, her name was Tessa, slid the folder across her desk, eyes sharp behind glasses. "This is fraud," she said flatly. "Forgery, witness tampering. You realize this isn't just family drama? It's a crime." Hearing it out loud made my skin prickle. For months, I'd swallowed their gaslighting, their digs about me being dramatic, ungrateful. But here, under fluorescent lights and legal language, the truth hardened into evidence. Tessa tapped her pen. "We'll need proof beyond this. Emails, texts, financial records that show your labor, your recipes, your name." I opened my phone. Photos of my burned arms. DMs from clients who asked for me by name. Screenshots of Brooke posting my recipes as her own. And the follower count on my anonymous account, climbing daily. Tessa's lips curved into a thin smile. "This is stronger than you think. We can file for injunction, seize the brand until the case resolves. And if we push forgery, they could lose everything." Court came faster than I imagined. Mom entered in pearls, Brooke in designer heels. They smiled like it was Sunday service. But when the judge flipped through exhibits, the mismatched ink on the signature, the time-stamped video of Brooke practicing my name, the smile drained from their faces. My voice shook as I took the stand. I built that bakery. Every recipe, every tray. I signed partnership papers in good faith. They turned them into a weapon. Brooke's lawyer objected. Emotional testimony. The judge waved him off. Let her speak. I met Brooke's eyes across the room. "You told me family meant trust, and you forged mine." The silence was heavy, only broken by Mom's sudden sob. "Allison, we were protecting you. You couldn't handle it." "No," I cut in, voice clear for the first time. "You were protecting yourselves from me owning what I created." The gavel came down like thunder. The contract void. The business frozen pending damages. The bakery's name legally tied back to me. I walked out into the sun. The courthouse steps buzzing with reporters. Brooke shoved past me, face twisted. "This isn't over," she hissed. But I was already moving forward. My lawyer at my side, my phone buzzing with offers. From investors who had seen the article, the trial, the truth. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. And in that moment, I finally held it. What I did next shocked even me, Because I didn't rebuild their dream. I built mine. I didn't reopen the bakery on Main Street. I let Mom and Brooke keep the building, the debt, the hollow shell of what they stole. Instead, I signed a lease on a tiny corner space across town. Brick walls, sunlight streaming through big windows. No ghosts. I named it Flowerless Faith, the same handle I'd hidden behind online. But this time, my name was on every paper, every sign, every cup of coffee served. Opening day wasn't crowded with speeches or cameras. It was me, an oven that barely fit the space, and a line of customers who had followed my journey from a screen to reality. When the first woman bit into a croissant and smiled, my chest swelled with something sharper than victory. Belonging. This was mine. Not gifted, not borrowed, not stolen. Mine. Mom tried calling once. Her voicemail trembled, weaving apologies with accusations. You ruined the family name. You'll regret leaving us behind. I deleted it without reply. Brooke sent a text weeks later. You'll never scale without us. You're small time. I looked around at the packed cafe, the buzz of conversation, the orders I could barely keep up with. Maybe small time was enough. 6 months in, a food blogger returned. This time she printed my full name, my story, my scars. The article ended with 6 words I read over and over. She baked her way back to herself. I framed it on the wall. Not as proof to Mom or Brooke, but as a reminder to me. Because for years I let their voices drown mine out. Now every morning when I unlock the door, I hear only my own. If you've ever been erased, belittled, or told your work doesn't count unless someone else claims it, know this. Your worth isn't theirs to sign away. You can start again. You can build in your own name. Have you ever faced something like this? Tell me in the comments. And if my story hit home, subscribe for more stories of truth, betrayal, and taking your life back.
Saturday morning. I had just poured my first cup of coffee and was watching steam curl into the gray Oregon sky when my phone buzzed. Trevor West, my realtor from years ago, the man who helped me find the one place that was mine. Hey, Delaney, he said, voice cautious. Quick question, are you selling your cabin? My hand froze on the mug. No. Why? There's a listing up. Your mountain property near Bend. Same photos. Same lot size. It's live right now, but the contact number isn't yours. A sharp, cold sensation slid down my spine. Whose number is it? He hesitated. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, but I reverse searched it. It's a woman named Marla Carver, my mother. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. The silence was so dense I could hear the tick of the clock above the stove. I'll send you the link, Trevor added gently. Thought I'd check with you first before taking any steps. After we hung up, I opened the message. There it was. My cabin, my name not listed, but every other detail was exact. Photos I'd never taken. A description worded just close enough to sound legitimate. Peaceful alpine getaway. It read, available for private viewing. There was Mom's number at the bottom. Bold and public, like she had every right. I didn't even feel anger yet, just a hollow, rising pressure in my chest, like the ground beneath something sacred had started to crack. I set the phone down, walked to the sink, and stood staring through the window, knuckles white on the edge of the counter. My mother was trying to sell my home. I picked up the phone again and called her. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Hi, sweetheart, Mom said, her voice laced with that artificial warmth she saved for when she knew she was in trouble. How's your weekend going? Why is my cabin listed online? I asked, skipping any pretense. A pause. Then, in that same tone, oh, you saw that. You put my property up for sale. Well, she said, drawing the word out like it needed softening. Your father and I just thought it would be best. You're so busy. Delaney, you never even use it anymore. That's not your decision to make. Another pause. I could hear her settle into her kitchen chair. It's for Sierra. She's expecting. And she and Caleb need a place. They've outgrown that little apartment already. You know how expensive things are now. My jaw locked. You didn't ask me. Because you would have said no. She said plainly. We're not trying to hurt you. It's family. She needs help. You always help. I closed my eyes. It's not yours to sell. We're not doing anything illegal, she said quickly. We have copies of your ID, your tax forms, old documents with your signature. We can manage the paperwork if that's what you're worried about. I stared at the wall across from me like it might split open. You mean you're going to forge my name? It's just easier this way, she said, gently, as if explaining something logical to a child. And we know you'll understand. Once you calm down, you've always been the responsible one. She said it like it was a compliment, before I could respond. I heard Dad's voice in the background. Is she upset Mom covered the phone? It's fine. I'm handling it. I ended the call. Then I opened my laptop and searched for Trevor's number again. I didn't call Trevor right away. Instead, I sat there with my laptop open, the cursor blinking on an empty email draft. My hands hovered over the keys, but I couldn't type yet, not through the wave of memories that hit me all at once. It wasn't just the cabin. It was the way they always framed it. You're so responsible. The words they used to convince me to pay Sierra's last 2 semesters of college when her scholarship fell through. The same words they used when her wedding budget spiraled out of control and I wrote a check to cover the difference because she deserved a perfect day. The first time I agreed to help with the mortgage was when Dad got laid off. I told myself it was temporary. They promised they'd pay me back. That was nearly 3 years ago. $800 a month, automatically withdrawn, quietly taken. No one ever brought it up, not even me, because that's what I was trained to be: quiet, reliable, the one who fixes things without being asked, the daughter who gives, not the one who questions why no one ever gives back. I used to think it was love. That doing more meant I was a good person. That being the stable one was a kind of honor. But sitting there, realizing they were planning to forge my signature and sell the only thing I owned outright, I saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't love. It was control, just softened by years of obligation and polite smiles. I opened my banking app, canceled the auto payment. Then I picked up my phone, took a breath, and called Trevor. Trevor picked up on the second ring. "Delaney," he said, voice steady but curious. "Everything okay, No?" I said. "But I need your help. I want to sell the cabin." A pause. "You sure I'm sure?" Fast. "If possible." "How soon could we close if everything lined up?" "Well, if the buyer has cash and financing in place. Maybe 10 days? Why do you remember that sheriff you mentioned? Is he still interested?" "Yeah, Colton Reese. Been looking for something like your place for months. Lives down in Sisters. Quiet guy, solid income, pre-approved. Why, I'll knock $10,000 off the asking price and add a bonus to your commission if we can close before next Friday." Trevor whistled. "You're serious. Dead serious." "Okay, I'll make the call." After we hung up, I opened my laptop again. I wasn't done. I logged into the joint access account one I'd opened with my parents years ago when Dad had surgery and needed help managing bills. It was still linked to my name, still gave them quiet access to my finances. I revoked it. Then I went through all my accounts, one by one, checking for anything they might still have eyes on: insurance, shared statements, tax documents they used to handle for me, every door they had ever opened under the guise of helping. I shut by the time I finished. It was past midnight, but I didn't feel tired. There was something cold and focused inside me now, like a thread pulled taut. They'd moved in secret, quietly laying plans and justifying them as helping the family. They thought I'd roll over, like always. Instead, I moved faster. When Trevor called me back the next morning, his voice had a new energy. "He's in," he said. "Full price minus your discount. Wants to close as soon as inspections clear." "Do it," I said. "Send me what you need." The next few days blurred into documents, signatures, phone calls. I didn't tell anyone, not friends, not co-workers, not even my aunt. Who would have understood? I wasn't looking for advice. I was reclaiming something, quietly, legally, and without permission. By Thursday afternoon, the deed was filed, the funds cleared, and the cabin no longer belonged to me. But it sure as hell didn't belong to them either. 2 weeks passed with nothing but silence. No calls, no voicemails, not even one of Mom's subtle guilt texts. For a while, I let myself believe maybe they'd moved on. Maybe they found another way to get Sierra her dream apartment. Maybe they'd realized what they were doing and quietly let go. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it buzz twice before answering. "Hello?" Her voice was sharp, panicked, and louder than usual. "Delaney, what's going on?" We went up to the cabin with a couple who wanted to see the place. And the locks. Someone changed the locks. None of our keys work. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, even though I already knew what I was going to say. "I know." I said, "You changed them. Why, we have people ready to buy it." "It's not my house anymore," I said. There was silence. And then she laughed, but it was that brittle kind of laugh. More nerves than humor. Very funny. "But seriously, the buyers are getting annoyed and your father's furious. This is making everything more complicated than it needs to be." "I'm not joking," I said calmly. "I sold the house. Last week, the new owners installed those locks." The silence stretched longer this time. I could picture her face, her mouth opening and closing, trying to process the fact that I had moved faster than she expected. "Finally," she said, "you..." "What?" "You heard me." "Without even telling us." Her voice cracked. "Delaney, how could you do something so spiteful? I didn't do it out of spite." I said, "I did it because it was mine, and I was done pretending I owed it to you." She started saying something else, but I didn't wait to hear it. I hit end and set the phone on the counter. My hands trembled for a few seconds, my body catching up to the adrenaline that had held me still through the call. But then a strange, unexpected calm settled in. For the first time in years, I'd said no and meant it. They couldn't guilt me into reversing anything. The deed was final. The money was already working to clean up my own debt. I had acted without asking for permission, and there was no apology coming. I stood in the kitchen a while longer, the quiet wrapping around me like armor. Then the phone lit up again. This time, it was Sierra. I let Sierra's call go to voicemail the first time, and the second, but she didn't stop, by the fourth attempt. I picked up mostly out of curiosity. "Delaney." "What the hell is going on?" she snapped. No greeting, no pause. "Mom just called me crying about locks and buyers walking away." "What did you do?" "I sold the house," I said evenly. There was a beat of silence, and then, "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. The house is no longer mine. You didn't even tell anyone." Her voice was rising now. "We've been planning this for months. I already picked out an apartment. I hired a designer to help with the nursery theme. We told people we were moving into a new place. Then you shouldn't have based your future on something that didn't belong to you." Her breath caught. "You don't understand. I'm pregnant." "Yes. Sierra. I know. And that doesn't make it my responsibility." There was another pause. Then her voice softened, slipping into the tone she used when she wanted something. "We just needed a little help. Del, you've always been the one who holds things together. Mom said you'd come around." I let out a quiet breath. "Figure it out, like the rest of us do." Her tone snapped back into its usual pitch. "You're being cruel." "No," I said. "I'm finally being clear." There was silence, long and heavy. Then she muttered something under her breath and hung up. I stood there with the phone still in my hand, not shaking this time, not even angry, just tired of being the solution to everyone's problems. They had built their entire plan around my compliance. They assumed I'd fold, because I always had. But they never asked what would happen if I didn't. The silence after her call didn't feel like guilt. It felt like a door closing, not slammed, just shut. 2 more days passed without a word. Then Trevor called again this time. Not about documents or inspections. "Delaney," he said. "You're not going to believe what happened." "Delaney," Trevor said carefully. "The sheriff, your buyer, just called me. There was a break-in at the cabin over the weekend." My stomach twisted. Is he all right? He wasn't there, but the alarm went off. Caught everything on the cameras. The guy tried to force the back door open with a crowbar, then circled around trying the windows. I already knew before he said it. It was your father. I closed my eyes. He's been arrested. The sheriff recognized him from the paperwork and called the local PD instead of handling it himself. Said he wanted to keep things above board. Of course. I murmured, "Thank you for telling me." "I'm sorry," Trevor added. I wish I could say I was surprised. We hung up, and I sat in silence until my phone rang again. This time, it was my mother, Delaney. She cried before I could say a word. "You have to fix this. Your father was just trying to get into your property. He didn't know it was sold for real. Call the sheriff. Tell him it's a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding," I said. "He thought you were bluffing," she said desperately. "We didn't think you'd actually go through with it. You had the ad online. You were arranging showings. You were going to forge my signature. And now you're shocked that I didn't let you get away with it. Don't be cruel. He's your father." "No," I said. "He's a man who broke into someone else's home. On purpose. After being told it wasn't his. He could go to jail. He made that choice." "You're heartless," she whispered. "No. I'm just done." I hung up and turned off my phone. There was nothing left to explain. They hadn't misunderstood anything. They knew exactly what they were doing. They just never imagined I'd finally say no. And this time, no one was going to talk me out of it. It didn't take long for the news to spread. Small town, small circles. The sheriff didn't press charges for trespassing, but my dad didn't walk away untouched. The incident went into an official report. Within a week, his employer, mall security, found out. They let him go quietly. No confrontation, just a termination letter and a severance check too small to matter. Mom stopped calling after that. For a few weeks. Everything went silent again. Then Aunt Cora reached out. She didn't lecture. She never did. She just gave me the facts they've burned through most of their savings, legal fees, paying people back, and Sierra and Caleb moved in with them. I almost laughed when I heard that part. The dream apartment dissolved, and now the golden child was back in her childhood bedroom, pregnant, married, and sandwiched between two people who were unraveling. "They're not doing well," Cora said gently. "Your mom's been working more hours at the grocery store. Sierra's complaining a lot, and your dad, well, he's not handling the downtime. I thanked her for letting me know, but I didn't ask for updates. They had always talked about family like it meant obligation, like helping them was proof of love. But now that I wasn't the one holding it all together, everything was crumbling, and I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. For years, I thought my role in the family was essential, that if I stepped away, they'd collapse. Turns out, I was right. But instead of feeling needed, I just felt free. I made dinner that night alone, with music on low and my phone turned off. I didn't feel like rescuing anyone. I didn't feel like apologizing. The next morning, I woke up without dread, and I made my first therapy appointment. The first session was hard. I sat on the couch, unsure where to start, staring at a framed photo of a tree above the bookshelf like it might offer me the words I couldn't find. Dr. Leone didn't rush me. She waited. I told her everything haltingly at first, then all at once. The cabin, the forged sale, the wedding money, the monthly payments, the silence I always kept because making noise felt like betrayal. She listened without blinking. When I finally stopped talking, she said, "You weren't their daughter. Delaney. You were their emergency fund." I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, something inside me just clicked, like a key turning in the right lock after years of jamming the wrong one. We talked about boundaries, patterns. The long, quiet grooming that teaches you love and debt are the same thing. She gave it a name: financial abuse, and it fit. I went home afterward and sat in my living room for a long time. No TV, no music, just the steady hum of the refrigerator and the traffic outside my window. I looked at the space around me, not big, not fancy, but mine, and I let the stillness sink in. That night, I slept through without waking. No texts buzzing at midnight, no bank alerts, no weight in my chest reminding me that someone, somewhere, was disappointed I hadn't fixed something for them. For the first time in years, I wasn't the backup plan. I wasn't the one carrying anyone else's weight, and I started to wonder what it might look like to carry only my own. 7 months later, I walked through a quiet neighborhood just outside the city, hands in my coat pockets, eyes scanning the yard in front of me. The house was small, modest, really, but it had a garden. Not much more than a patch of dirt now, but I could already picture the lavender and basil growing there, maybe even tomatoes. If I got brave. The realtor unlocked the door and let me step in first. The floors creaked. The kitchen smelled like lemon polish. No granite countertops, no vaulted ceilings, just a clean slate, a space that hadn't been soaked in someone else's expectations. I didn't have to call anyone to ask what they thought. 2 weeks later, the papers were signed. The house was mine. I bought a used Toyota after that, something reliable, nothing flashy. The old car had finally died, and for once, replacing it didn't mean cutting into groceries or skipping rent. I paid in full, no loan, no cosigner, no family involved. Every month now, I set aside money, not for emergencies caused by someone else, but for things I actually wanted: a weekend trip to the coast, a class on herb gardening, maybe a new mattress. My bank account wasn't just a revolving door for other people's needs anymore. It was mine. The silence in my life used to feel heavy. Now it feels like air. No crisis calls, no guilt texts, no obligation tangled in every holiday. I wake up, I work, I cook dinner in my quiet kitchen, I go to therapy, I make plans, small ones, mine. No one tells me who I need to be. And I finally understand freedom isn't loud. It's the soft, steady hum of a life that belongs to no one but you. The rain had just started when I stepped out of my apartment, the mist soft but steady clinging to my gown and flattening the curls I'd spent half an hour on. I kept one hand over my cap, the other gripping my purse. It was 3 blocks to the bus stop, 12 to campus if I walked the whole way. I didn't check the bus schedule. I didn't need another disappointment today. As I turned the corner near Walnut Street, a silver Tesla glided past. For a second, I thought it might be them, but no, the license plate didn't match. My phone buzzed. I already knew what it was. I stopped under a tree and checked the screen, a photo of Caleb in front of his new car, one arm flung over the roof, the other holding up his key fob like a trophy. White exterior, black rims, red bow, caption from Mom. Our boy earned it. Right below it, a message from Dad. Walk there, we're buying your brother a Tesla. I stood frozen while a jogger brushed past, casting a curious glance at my soaked gown. I didn't feel the cold. I didn't feel much of anything. By the time I reached 15th Street, I wasn't thinking about the rain anymore. I was thinking about birthdays they forgot, college forms I signed alone, and the way Dad always said I was low maintenance, like it was a compliment. I remembered how Mom once said I was lucky to be so independent right after she missed my debate finals for Caleb's dentist appointment. The walk felt longer than it should have. Or maybe it just always feels that way when no one's waiting at the finish line. Campus came into view through the fog. Somewhere behind the tall brick buildings, graduates were gathering families, taking pictures, people who had someone driving them there. I kept walking, adjusting the tassel that had already started to droop from the damp. I'd made it this far without anyone holding my hand. I didn't expect them to start now. When I was 9, I won the district spelling bee. My name was in the school newsletter, and I came home with a trophy almost as tall as my backpack. That same weekend, Caleb scored a goal in his under-6 soccer game, a goal against his own team, but a goal nonetheless. My parents brought cupcakes to his next practice. My trophy gathered dust on the kitchen counter until someone moved it to the garage shelf. They said I was the reliable one, the quiet achiever, the daughter who didn't cause trouble. I used to think that was a good thing. By 13, I understood how it worked. If Caleb brought home a B-, we ordered pizza. If I brought home straight A's, Dad gave a nod. That's what we expect from you, Lena. I started hiding my report cards just to see if anyone would notice. They didn't. On my 16th birthday, I got a recycled shopping bag with a thrift store sweater and a brochure for a used car lot. "We'll help you when you're ready," Mom said. When Caleb turned 16, they rented out a rec center, hired a DJ, and handed him keys to a used BMW low-mileage leather seats still had that new car smell. I got my first job the following summer, saving every shift to pay insurance on the old Honda I eventually bought myself. Caleb never worked a day in high school. When he started college, they covered tuition rent and a monthly living stipend that exceeded my entire scholarship budget. Still, I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was stronger for it, more independent, more capable. That's what people always say, isn't it? That you're resilient when no one shows up for you, that you're mature when you stop asking for help. But even the strongest child gets tired of clapping alone. That thought lingered as I stepped onto campus, wiping the rain from my sleeves. A cluster of students stood under a white tent, laughing with parents who held cameras and coffee cups. I spotted my roommate Noah waving in the distance, but not my parents. 3 weeks before graduation, I called home. The Toyota had started making a hollow knocking sound every time I hit 35, and the mechanic said something vague but expensive about the transmission. I didn't ask them for a new car. I just said carefully I might need help getting to the ceremony. "It's across town, and I don't think the car'll make it." There was a pause. I could hear Dad typing in the background. "Can't one of your roommates drive you? They're all graduating too," I said. "We have to be there early for lineup." "We'll figure something out," Mom chimed in. "By the way, did we tell you Caleb made Dean's List this semester?" I didn't respond right away. Caleb's major was communications. The GPA cutoff for Dean's List there was barely above a C+. "He's been working so hard," she added. "Honestly, we're thinking about doing something special for him. He's been under so much pressure with fraternity life and everything." I almost laughed, but it came out dry in my throat. The next time I stopped by the house to grab the last box of winter clothes from the basement, I came in through the side door. They didn't hear me. From the kitchen, their voices floated down the hallway. "The dealership said they could get it delivered by Friday," Dad said. "Just in time. Oh, and we'll park it near the ceremony entrance. Everyone will see it when we walk in." I froze. "It'll be perfect," Mom said. "Caleb in his suit, the white Tesla that bow. People will think he's the graduate." I didn't realize I'd made a sound until they turned and saw me in the doorway. My father cleared his throat. "Hey, Lena, we didn't know you were here." I just nodded. I came for my box. Neither of them mentioned the car. Neither asked if I needed help getting to graduation. As I loaded my things into the trunk, I stared at the peeling bumper, the back seat with a tear in the fabric, the rattle that grew louder with each mile. Then I closed the lid and told myself again that I was used to this. Used to showing up alone. Used to not being part of the plan. The morning mist hadn't lifted by the time I stepped outside. My gown clung to my legs as I walked, and the navy dress underneath was already damp at the hem. A breeze tugged at my cap, and I pressed it down with one hand, the other clutching the strap of my tote. My shoes slapped against the wet pavement. I passed 3 families taking pictures on their porches, parents adjusting ties and smoothing out gowns. I kept my eyes ahead. The bus stop was empty when I arrived, except for an older woman seated on the bench with an umbrella resting against her knee. She looked up as I approached. Her eyes were kind, the kind that scan you once and understand more than they let on. "Graduating today?" she asked. I nodded. "University of Colorado." She patted the seat beside her. "Sit before you soak through. I'm Doris." I hesitated, then joined her under the wide arc of her umbrella. "Lena." "Family meeting you there?" she asked, as if the answer wasn't already obvious. I hesitated. "They're coming later. I had to get there early for lineup." Doris didn't press. Instead, she chuckled softly. "I took the bus to my graduation too. Nursing school, 1963. My parents were at my brother's baseball tournament." She paused. "They sent a telegram afterward, missed my name being called." I didn't know what to say. She just looked ahead. You learn not to need applause, she added, but it still would have been nice to hear it. The bus groaned to a stop in front of us. The driver, a man with salt and pepper hair and a warm smile, looked down at my gown and waved me on. No fare today, he said. Congratulations. Inside, a woman in scrubs stood and offered me her seat. Another passenger, a teenager with earbuds, gave me a quick thumbs up. I mumbled thanks and sat down cradling my toad in my lap. The small kindnesses hit harder than I expected. Doris settled across from me, umbrella now folded neatly in her lap. As the bus rumbled toward campus, my phone buzzed. A text from Caleb Tesla is amazing. Driving everyone to your thing now. Can't wait for people to see it. I turned the phone off and slipped it into my bag. The driver turned onto Broadway. I could already see the white tents rising between the brick buildings ahead. The graduate assembly area was a mix of nerves and noise, rows of caps cords and gowns shifting in loose formation. I found my place among the marketing majors and kept my head down, adjusting the tassel on my cap more times than necessary. Noah spotted me from 2 rows over and waved with both hands. I smiled, grateful for her steady presence even from a distance. Around us, families were filling in the rows of folding chairs on the lawn. I saw mothers fussing with collars, grandparents snapping photos, younger siblings running between aisles with juice boxes in hand. But not mine. As the announcer gave instructions, clap at the end, keep moving, smile for the cameras. I scanned the crowd again. Still no sign of them. We began the procession slowly, one pair at a time. The music swelled string instruments and brass, and we stepped onto the long green stretch leading to the stage. People clapped. Some cheered, a few cried. I walked with measured steps, hands clenched at my sides. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't even going to look for them again. But when I reached my seat, I couldn't help it. There, finally weaving awkwardly through the far left section, were my parents. Late, of course. My mother was on her phone trying to text and scan the crowd at the same time. My dad was talking to a man in a suit, laughing like he was networking at a conference. Caleb trailed behind them wearing a sleek blue suit and sunglasses, holding the Tesla fob in his hand like a VIP pass. They hadn't seen me. Or if they had, they hadn't stopped long enough to notice. Names started echoing across the field. Students walked across the stage to polite applause, occasional whistles, camera flashes. I clapped where appropriate, smiled when classmates returned to their seats. All the while, I waited for the ache in my chest to settle. It didn't. When the announcer reached the M's, I sat up straighter. I heard the lead-in Bachelor of Science in Marketing, followed by my name. Lena Marlowe, summa cum laude. I stood. My cap nearly slipped as I stepped into the aisle. Every breath felt like it might crack something open inside me. Then, from the very back of the seating area, a sound pierced through the polite murmur of the crowd, sharp, clear, and unmistakably proud. A cheer. Not a small one. Not a single voice. A full, joyful yell. I turned my head. At the edge of the crowd near the overflow seating stood June, waving both arms in the air. Noah held up one end of a large yellow banner that read in bold letters, "We see you, Lena." Next to them were Thomas and Kayla from the library, clapping like I'd just won the Pulitzer. Kayla had even brought a balloon now bouncing against her shoulder in the wind. I felt the tears immediately hot, fast, unstoppable. Not the kind that sting with sadness. The kind that say, finally. I walked across the stage and shook the dean's hand, gripping the diploma like it was something I'd carved from stone. When I turned back toward the seats, I found them again my people, my real cheering section. And just past them, I saw my parents. Mom was frozen mid-text, staring. Dad had one hand shielding his eyes from the sun, scanning the noise. Caleb stood still, frowning slightly. For once, none of them were the center of attention. And it showed. I walked back to my seat with my head high, my vision still wet, but my back straight. My diploma in one hand and something steadier settling inside me. Because for the first time in a very long time, I hadn't needed them to see me. Someone already had. The courtyard was swarming families with flowers, professors in heavy robes, cameras flashing like a red carpet. I weaved through the clusters until I spotted June near a tree. the banner now folded neatly under her arm, her other hand wrapped around a paper cup of tea. "You did it," she said, pulling me into a hug. "And you were luminous up there." Before I could reply, I felt a tap on my shoulder. "There you are," Mom said brightly, as if we'd simply lost each other in the crowd. Dad stood behind her, already adjusting the strap on his camera bag. Caleb hovered a few feet away, holding a Tesla key fob and spinning it slowly around his finger. "We need to get some quick pictures by the car," Mom continued. "It's parked in the VIP section, thank God." Caleb had to parallel park, but you should have seen it flawless. She turned, already walking toward the lot. "No," I said. She paused. "What do you mean?" "No, I'm not posing in front of Caleb's Tesla on my graduation day." "Don't be difficult, Lena. It's just a few pictures." "It's never just a few pictures," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it landed. Dad stopped fiddling with the lens cap. Caleb blinked. "It's every moment like this one where you forget whose day it is, where you turn my achievements into his backdrop." I walked to my own graduation. "You didn't even ask how I was getting here." "You're always so independent," Mom said, her voice tightening. "We thought you preferred that." "No," I said calmly. "You just preferred not to be responsible." Caleb stepped forward. "I didn't ask for the car." "I know," I said. "You didn't have to." Mom opened her mouth again, but another voice cut in. "Elena," June said, stepping beside me. "Do you remember how your father treated Carol growing up?" Mom's face changed. She was the one who worked quietly, who never demanded attention, and he made her invisible for it. And now here you are doing the same thing to your own daughter. "Mom, this isn't the time," Mom muttered, glancing around at the families nearby. "If not now," when June asked. "You raised 2 children and taught only one that love was guaranteed. The other had to earn it and never quite did." Mom's eyes glistened, but she didn't say a word. Dad just looked at the ground. "I'm going to dinner," I said, turning to Noah, who had been standing a few paces behind me, silent but watchful. With people who wanted to celebrate me, I added, my voice steady. "You can't just walk away from your family," Dad called after me. I didn't stop. "Watch me." Noah fell into step beside me, and we started toward the sidewalk. I didn't look back, not until I heard Caleb's voice behind us. "So, we're not doing Tesla pics?" he asked, genuinely confused. The absurdity hit me all at once, how utterly detached they were from everything real, how even now they couldn't read the moment. I laughed. A short, sharp, startled kind of laugh that surprised even me. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't joy either. Just something honest breaking loose after years of holding everything in. I kept walking, arm looped through Noah's, feeling the sound linger behind me like a door closing. They knocked around 10. I almost didn't answer. Noah had offered to stay, but I told her I needed to do this alone. I opened the door to find both of them standing there, Mom still in her heels, Dad holding a takeout bag like an awkward peace offering. "We need to talk," Dad said, stepping inside before I could say yes or no. I let them in. We sat in the living room, the same second-hand couch they'd always turned their noses up at. "We didn't mean to upset you," Mom started, "but your behavior today," I cut her off with a shoebox. I placed it on the coffee table and opened the lid. Inside, birthday cards, printed emails, a few faded photos. I pulled out a card from my 16th birthday. No note, just a $20 bill and Dad's initials. I laid it next to a framed photo of Caleb at 16, surrounded by balloons holding keys to a used BMW. Next, my college acceptance letter with no reply. Then, an old bank receipt my account with $142 during sophomore year. I placed it beside a screenshot of Mom's text, just sent Caleb his monthly allowance. He says it's still not enough for gas and groceries. They stared in silence. "I didn't keep these to be petty," I said. "I kept them to remind myself I wasn't imagining it." They said nothing. Then a voice from the hallway. "Seriously, Caleb." He stood by the door, having heard enough. He looked at the table, then at me. "I knew it was different," he said quietly. "But I didn't know it was this." Before I could respond, another knock. I opened the door to June, holding a plastic grocery bag and a look that meant business. "I thought you might need backup," she said, stepping inside without waiting. She looked around, saw the evidence laid bare, and nodded. "Well?" she said, setting the bag down beside me. It's about time they looked at the full picture. The apartment was mostly boxes and echoes by the time they arrived. Mom brought sandwiches, Dad brought tape, and Caleb brought silence. We packed in near quiet, broken only by the sound of cardboard folding and drawer handles rattling. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't fake either. Maybe that was something. Dad offered to load the heavier things into his SUV. "You sure you want to take that bookshelf?" he asked. "It's pretty beat up." "I built it myself sophomore year," I said. "I'm taking it." He nodded and didn't argue. Caleb lingered near the kitchen. Just before we left, he handed me a small cardboard box. "I found this in the basement. Don't know why I kept it." Inside was my science fair medal from 4th grade, the one they missed because of his ear infection. It was still on the frayed red ribbon, the bronze dulled but intact. "You should have had that," he said, eyes down. "Back then." I didn't say thank you. I just took it and slipped it into my bag. When everything was loaded, we stood awkwardly in the living room. No hugs, no promises, just a vague sense that something had shifted. They left first. June stayed behind to ride with me. As we pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed. A text from her. "How does it feel to be exactly where you're meant to be?" I looked at the boxes in the back seat, at the cracked spine of my bookshelf, at the small medal in my lap. "Like the beginning," I typed back. Then I hit send and turned toward the road ahead.